Welcome back. This is still the Polity. We're still talking on the issue of the ministerial screening. I'm still in the studio here with Dr. Lome, for social scientist and psychologist. Right now, we'll be heading, to the specific issue of the screening of Festus Keyamo and what we witnessed there. We saw a bit of a ruckus between the senators, and some were of the opinion that his screening should be stepped down till he answered the question which the Ninth Senate had raised a long time ago, where he did not respond. What do you make of that situation? Do you think it was handled to the way or to the extent that it should have been?
When you have a rubber stamp National Assembly, there is always that desperation to do the will of the president. It's a big problem, because what I saw with Festus Keyamo is that the desperation to do the bidding of the president. In other words, as far as Keyamo has been recommended by the president, nobody should raise any issue about him. Then why the screening? For me, I keep saying it. Ministerial screening in Nigeria is nothing but ritualistic redundancy, because it's not addressing anything. Keyamo was summoned by the Senate and the House of Representatives in the Ninth National Assembly. He snubbed the both houses. He refused to go. For me, for the same person to stand before the Senate without completely dealing with the reason for which he was being summoned, or for which he was summoned, and he is cleared, it amounts to total playing to the gallery. For me, it's shameful. How would you expect that Keyamo to respect the 10th Senate? He will not. And very soon, everybody will say it. There is a 62 billion, either 62 or 52 billion naira that went through him. The money was appropriated by the National Assembly, so they reserve every right to ask questions about it. Till today, he has not found any explanation. He said, well, I apologize. They said, okay, you are cleared. So why raise the issue in the first place? If the motion was moved that he had to explain what happened, there was a motion. The motion was seconded and therefore passed by the Senate, that he must explain what happened to the money for which he was summoned by both chambers of the National Assembly in the 9th National Assembly. And without attending to that particular prescription of the motion, and you still went on ahead and cleared him, the Senate shot itself at the foot. Because time will come when they will still want to bring the Saint Keyamo before them. If Keyamo tomorrow refuses again, like he did to the 9th Senate, will anybody blame him? You will not, because when you had the opportunity, you couldn't subject him, under your own control. There is an adage in my place that says that when you have the opportunity of holding the strong man, on the ground, that is the time you should collect whatever. If you allow him to stand up, it's over. And as it is now, as far as I am concerned, as far as I can see, the 10th Senate is under the feet of Festus Keyamo. And it's very unfortunate. He must explain what happened to the money. That is why we have the National Assembly. We put them there to represent us, to appropriate money on our behalf, and the MDAs under the president are the ones executing the Appropriation Act passed by the National Assembly, and the oversight responsibility, which is a constitutional assignment, statutorily is a rule statutorily assigned to the Senate and the House of Reps to ensure that the purpose clause for which every appropriation was made is actually complied with. That is the reason they asked Festus Keyamo in the 9th National Assembly to come for explanation. He did it. And the 10th National Assembly, through the Senate, asked the same question, and he did it. He still didn't offer the explanation. And he was cleared by the same 10th Senate to become a minister of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. He will not be answerable to the National Assembly. That's my position.
Yeah.
And the reasons are so clear and obvious why he will not be.
Yeah, I think the Senate will have to deal with that eventually if they find themselves.
They have lost the opportunity. They can't do it again.
Okay, so, but the question now is, what would you say is enough to stop the screening? No, what's the word? Approval, so to speak, of a candidate? Because as it is, it's almost as though anything can come up, and they just at the end of the day will just be take a bow and walk away. Yes. I'd just like to get from your own perspective, what's something that you've seen or you think could happen that perhaps the Senate will say this is just too much, we're not clearing you?
For me, insubordination to an arm of government should be enough to stop a nominee from being cleared. Festus Keyamo showed manifest insubordination to the National Assembly. He ought not to be a minister. This is my view. The Senate clearing him under that circumstance is too extraneous, too unfortunate. It ought not to be. And if the matter was not raised and the motion also originating from that and passed by the same Senate, and the Senate bypassed, sidestepped even his own motion, because if you can play the tape back and say the motion that was moved, the prayer, every motion has a prayer. The prayer is that Festus Keyamo will have to account for the money to the Senate. Now, there is no commitment. You have not given account for the ministerial schedule you held in the last dispensation, and you are asking for another schedule, another ministerial schedule. If you couldn't even submit to the office of the citizen, which the National Assembly is holding on our behalf, if you cannot, it means clear insubordination. It means you have no regard for that arm of government. So if the arm of government has the right to stop you from becoming a minister, they should invoke it. But now, I'm afraid it is too late. Because he has shown, you see, he is coming to say, well, I'm profusely sorry and all those. He just wants to leave that place and become minister again, and he will do waka to all of them, and that will be it. God will keep us alive for you to see who Festus Keyamo and what he will do subsequently. Because that's his nature, that's his life. That's him. I was even surprised that he was able to survive with Ngige, because Ngige is also a very stubborn person, and so somehow they managed to pull it through. For 7.5 years, they stayed together, and one senior and the other junior, so to say. But the Festus Keyamo, I see, if you can't respect the Nigerian Senate, the Nigerian National Assembly, who will you respect? Do you understand what I'm saying? And you are a minister. A minister is a chief servant. You are a servant unto yourself, because the custodian of a Nigerian powers, the masses themselves, that is the parliament, that is the Congress, that is the Nigerian National Assembly. That red and green chamber you see there is an assemblage of the 210 million of us. And yet, they will call you to come and offer an explanation over the money they gave to you, and you snub them. And you come, based on influence, your nomination as a minister has expired. There is a fresh nomination, and the same National Assembly you snubbed cleared you to become a minister the second time. It's unfortunate.
Right. We'll see how the senators or the Senate, goes about it in the future. But that being said, there's another little bit of anomaly with this nomination. One in particular, from a Kano State nominee, Miriam Shetty, got to the National Assembly but found that her name was removed and she had been replaced by someone else from Kano State, and then we also saw the addition of Festus Keyamo. First of all, I like your comments on the fact that the second list came after the deadline of the 2 months that the president has, and you know, even the one that came after. And now the question of Miriam Shetty, what do you think is going on there? What's your take on the way that was handled? Because a lot of people speculate that the Kano State actors, political actors, fought heavily against her, and eventually they won out. Perhaps she didn't follow due process. She allegedly, you know, petitioned the president and his wife away from the structures of the state, and that is what ended up, you know, biting her at the end of the day. What do you make of that whole situation?
Well, the case of Ajia Shetty, very, very unfortunate. It is not ideal. You know, I believe that if there is a procedure for nomination of a candidate and that procedure is not followed, her name ought not to have emerged in the first place. And even before the names went to the Nigerian Senate, it's been somewhere around in the public, the media saw it a long time before then. What that means is that the Kano political machinery of the APC was aware of her nomination. Do you understand that? Now, if her nomination came through some back door and not through the front door, they ought not to have waited for the screening to commence before raising the eyebrow. Now, the anomaly that she now represents is only unfortunate, and it shows that it is all politics, like I said before, because the president obviously didn't know her. You know, maybe she knew the president's wife and they passed through her to represent Kano. But you're not representing yourself. You are representing the state. If the president wanted her, you know, as a person, she could be accommodated. Because if you look at it, the president is not adhering to the express constitutional provisions, or he's adhering to his own interpretation of the constitution that says at least one minister per state. In other words, the president can nominate more than one. That's the implication of that. I believe that Shetty, you know, you shouldn't have been embarrassed unless there is something quite untoward in the way she forced her way in. Do you understand that? Otherwise, for me, and somebody else should have been nominated to represent the political structure in Kano without still being retained.
That's very
because for me, I don't see the difference between 48 ministers and 49 ministers.
That's interesting, you know. But to speak about what you've been saying about politics, the political aspect of all of this, you know, there is a word on the grapevine that she will be compensated. You know, people keep using that word. Do you think that's the right mindset to have? They say some persons have even started listing out certain agencies. Some people say the Nigerian Post Authority, she could be the head of this one, that one. Is that really the mindset to have now?
You know, for me, I think it's politically expedient to carry her along. You know, whether you call that compensation or not, the embarrassment is just too much. You know, because no matter how she got there, the president, in his wisdom, forwarded her name to the National Assembly. You know, the list, no matter who compiled it, the president, you know, should be seen as the person that compiled the list. Do you understand what I'm saying? So for me, removing or substituting her when she's already before the National Assembly, it's not quite tidy. For me, I may be wrong in that, unless there is a security report that cropped up. Don't forget, all these nominees were supposed to have been cleared by the DSS and possibly by the Office of National Security Advisor before their names would be forwarded to the National Assembly. This has been the practice. I don't know whether they followed this route, but I believe they did. In other words, issue of security report against her should be ruled out. It is all politics. What happened to her is Nigerian politics. Since that has happened and the embarrassment, has been inflicted on her, something still has to be done. She mustn't be a minister, really. There are some agencies that are far more vital than ministries. There are some agencies, that their heads are more powerful than many ministers. So she can still be found useful by the president, and I advise that she be carried along. And if not for anything, the way she reacted and responded to the whole thing, she didn't throw tantrums. She simply said that it's not the end of the world. Do you understand that? Ascribing or attributing her fate to some factors, that may even be divine. That kind of philosophizing. For me, I think it showed a deep sense of maturity. Right. And by so doing, she earned her place in the president's team. And the president will really have to look in that direction if he's not considering it already.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Law. It's been great talking to you. Hopefully we get to see, how this turns out, and we'll be following it all through the process. I'm sure in no short time we'll be getting the portfolios of the ministers. Yeah. And then after that, we'll be following. First of all, we'll take a look at how well they fit into the portfolios, and then as they continue their journey, we'll see how well they do. The president has already spent about 72 days in office. We're still, really waiting to get an all-round view of what's going on. But hopefully we'll continue to have this discussion. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you. The pleasure is mine.
Thank you. All right, that's all we'll take on the program for today. Don't forget, the Polity reaches you live from Abuja, 2 p.m. to 3:30 p.m. every weekday. See you tomorrow. Bye for now. I am Amadine Ubewe.